Hello and welcome back to the Eyes of Ode gaming channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I have another older game in my What Is It and Is It Worth It game review series. In this video I will go through the various aspects of the game, trying my best to avoid spoilers for new players, and give examples of similar games as well as my personal opinion as to whether I would recommend the game with a thumbs up or thumbs down, and if I personally enjoyed it. I won't be giving a number rating to the game as many other channels do, as I find this to be a very arbitrary way of rating games, which like any other entertainment is completely subjective, and instead I prefer to give enough info for you to make a decision on your own if you would like to go forward with picking up this title for yourself. For today's game, we're looking at Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 is a first-person shooter developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. This entry in the Far Cry series was released in 2014, so it has 6 years on it by the time that I have recorded this, which actually really surprised me, as I felt like we were getting a new Far Cry all the time, but I guess it has been a few years between entries. Although the game in style and mechanics is very similar to Far Cry 3, it is a brand new story with a new character and set in a new location, and so playing the previous games is not a requirement to understand the story in this one. So now, 6 years on, what is this game? Has it held up over the years? And is it still worth picking up today if you're a first-time player? Let's find out. Far Cry 4 takes place in the fictional country called Kyrat, which is located in the Himalayas, with a real-world counterpart being Nepal to give you some context. In the game, you play as AJ Gale, or Gale, who is a Kyrati American, and you end up getting involved in a civil war which is going on in the country. Your reason for traveling to the country has nothing to do with the civil war, but through a series of events which happen in the beginning of the game, you will end up in the company of a group called the Golden Path, which has been labeled as a terrorist organization by the government. And you will work through missions to remove the power of the dictatorial regime while attempting to increase the power held by the Golden Path and your chosen leader. That's right, there is some choice in this game. It is a little limited as you can only choose between 2 potential leaders within the organization. However, it does give you some feeling of agency within the world. Basically, you just choose the missions of the perspective that you agree with more. The game itself will follow a very similar Far Cry experience. If you have played Far Cry 3, this will essentially feel like the exact same core game with extremely similar mechanics and abilities. Even the story, although you will play as a new character and you're in a completely different part of the world, it essentially follows an almost identical storyline where you play as an unwitting hero who gets involuntarily dragged into a conflict between a seemingly very bad guy who is competing with a seemingly very good character for control of the country. If you played and did not enjoy Far Cry 3, there's a good chance you won't like this one. Game features are also quite similar. You need to travel the countryside, liberating radio towers, which will uncover more of the map, and taking over outposts to remove the enemy's power within a region. Similar to other Far Cry titles, there is a heavy emphasis on stealth, that you could just run into an outpost, guns blazing, and take it by sheer brute force. This is not the way the game seems to intend for players to progress. There are alarms and other hindrances for this style of playthrough, and even awards in recognition for completing objectives without raising alarms or even managing to clear out an area while going completely unnoticed. One big change in this title over previous ones is that you can actually call in allies to help in certain situations. You will build up karma by helping people on your side of the conflict, which essentially gives you favors from the faction, which are called in as reinforcements. Be aware that during most story missions, or times when you could really use reinforcements, they will not actually be available to you. From my experience, the only time that they come to your aid is when doing tasks that you have chosen yourself, such as clearing an outpost. There are a decent number of weapons and vehicles to choose from while playing this game, which has always been a hallmark of Far Cry. You can even purchase upgrades for your weapons, equipping silencers, extended magazines, and others, though each weapon will have limitations on which attachments can be purchased and how many. As you play through the game, you'll gain experience, which then becomes skill points which you can use to unlock skills in the tiger and elephant skill trees relating to more offensive and defensive skills. Aside from needing the correct amount of skill points, To unlock some skills also requires a certain point in the story to be completed or completing a specific side mission or challenge. Personally, I felt that the graphics have held up quite well in this game. Even though it is getting up there in years, it still looks very comparable to other titles which have released more recently, and I don't think there will be any issue with this one. The environment looks quite nice, and the setting for the game in the Himalayas is a great aesthetic. The NPCs are fine as well. Not anything stand out, but they do not take away from the experience. What games would I compare this to? Well, if you played the previous Far Cry, that is an obvious comparison as they are nearly identical in mechanics and tone. Other than that, I did feel like the combat had some similarity to the game Dying Light, especially when using the bow. It also has some similarity with other Ubisoft titles, such as the Assassin's Creed franchise. Not so much in the story or mechanics, but in the way the world is built and progression, needing to climb to a high spot to unlock more on the map, or clearing out camps and outposts of the enemy. So would I recommend the game? Sure, it is fun, although it did seem to be a little generic. It seems that Ubisoft is suffering from this with their games lately, and I'm not sure the reason. Most feel very generic, and the story seems quite lacking, basically just changing out the names of the important characters, but reusing the same basic concepts over and over in their franchises, without coming up with anything new or revolutionary. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the game, but it is certainly not anything in the top 10, or going to win any creativity awards. If you want a fun bubblegum open world shooter that doesn't get much deeper than that, this is a good one, as mechanically it works great, and I found very few, if any, bugs while playing. It's essentially a game that checks all the boxes without pushing limits to create any innovation, and plays like a well-oiled machine, though similar to a machine, lacks something like a soul, if you understand my meaning. So I hope you enjoyed that look at Far Cry 4. Please let me know in the comments if you agree with me or not, or what your feelings on the game were. If you did enjoy this video, or if it helped you if you were considering picking up the title, please give the video a like, and also consider subscribing to the channel. I release videos often with reviews, walkthroughs, let's plays, and more. If you'd like to see me playing this or other games in livestream, check out my Twitch channel as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.